Welcome to the Home Service Contractor Blueprint by A2O Digital. Every episode will cover topics that impact all home service companies like marketing, sales tactics, operations, and more. Now, on to today's episode.
Welcome back to our podcast. My name is Tim Coleman. I'm here with Justin and Natalie. And today we're going to talk about a very important topic, and that is what has been going on recently with Google Business Profiles and LSA. So Natalie, I'm gonna start with you, and I'm just gonna say, like, what has Google been doing with GBPs and LSA, and what are they trying to achieve?
Yep. So basically, in end of 2024, Google announced that they are phasing out LSA review links from the local service ads platform. They are making it a requirement for any LSA account to have an associated and linked GBP listing to continue to run the ads and show the reviews. And in the past, LSA listings had to be, you had the option to either get a LSA verified review, but that is going to be phased out too. And the reason we think they're doing this is to help and mitigate the spam that we saw active in the LSA platform for reviews.
Okay, so spam, I feel like, is something we've been dealing with forever in LSA. And I guess Google feels like if these two products are combined, they have a better chance of combating it. Is that what we think is going on here?
They'd be combating it in one platform versus two platforms. That's what I'm thinking they're going to focus their resources on.
Yeah, and one of the things that we've seen, so they rolled out LSA, right? And this was many years ago now, but they put this ability to review, but there was no checks and balances on it in the LSA platform. So they gave the ability to leave reviews. There was no way to dispute a review. There was no way to combat someone creating fake reviews, right? So it got exposed. These spammers figured out ways to, expose that. And what we're theorizing is they kind of just decided, listen, rather than trying to fight this from the LSA side, GBP already has measures in place. It's not to say that you can't spam GBP either, but there's ways to report reviews. They have processes in place. So by relying on only GBP for those reviews, they can kind of eliminate some of the issues that they've been running into. So that's our speculation. That's what we've seen. They haven't specifically come out and said that, as far as I know, but that's kind of our theory on it. So,
and just as a reminder, GBP reviews integrated and were pushed into the LSA platform, but any LSA verified reviews were not pushed into the GBP platform. So it was a one-way street kind of thing.
And when we were deep diving into where this spam was in LSA, it was the LSA Google verified reviews.
Correct.
Right. As I recall, the business would actually just book jobs and not run them, just give themselves reviews, and then they could resell jobs that were booked. So Google had created a business model for them that worked across nearly the entire country. So this makes sense to me from that perspective. Now, normally when Google takes on a challenge like this, it usually goes really smooth and there's no problems. So I expect that's the case here as well. Like, it just went smooth as silk, I imagine. No problems?
Oh, yeah, no problems. No, I'm just kidding. With any Google rollout, right, there's always a ton of bugs and issues that affect the rollout. And from what we know, we're still going through the rollout now. So we don't really see the positive impact that this rollout has had.
Mm-hmm. What was the date? What was the date that they said that they were rolling it out? Just so everybody kind of knows.
Yep. So it initially started, they were saying November 2024. But we didn't start to see it impact some home service clients until February 5th, 2025.
And so let's talk a little bit about like how it was supposed to work, and then we can get into the bugs. So in theory, what was like supposed to happen? How did you connect the GBP and the LSA? How did they kind of like see that? How was that supposed to happen? Let's just talk about that. And then we can talk about, okay, we're now 3 weeks by this date, and like, what have we run into? What were the bugs? That type of stuff.
So what was supposed to happen, or in LSA, there's a business verification dashboard. And in that dashboard, they have now added business profile on there as an option. So it'll say whether it's verified, or if it's not verified or linked to an existing GBP, it'll say verify. When you click on verify, there's a button there that takes you to another platform to try to link it to an existing GBP. However, because we know all our customers already had active GBP listings, we didn't understand what was going to connect the two together. Initially, they said it had to be matching business name, matching addresses, and same mutual users between GBP and LSA. From what we saw after we did multiple suites as an agency, it was very inconsistent information across the board. Like, what worked best was adding a mutual GBP user onto LSA, and that automatically would link them together. But we did see a lot of mismatched names that were automatically linked, and we did see some mismatched addresses that were automatically linked.
All right. So Google provided vague instructions and then applied them inconsistently is what I just kind of heard, Natalie.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. And so I think the biggest problem, like in the agency right now, the thing I hear that's creating the most turmoil is Google is suspending a lot of listings. Is that right?
The biggest bug that we've seen so far yet is when listings come down in GBP, and we have no confirmation from Google that it's because of the rollout, but we suspect it's correlated.
Right. It's just it's too big a coincidence, right?
So sorry to back up just 1 second. So in theory, if everything went as smoothly as possible, the way Google explained it, on that date, which was, you said February, the beginning of February, if you had not already gone in and linked up your GBP, your LSA to that GBP listing, and it showed as verified, you were in theory no longer going to be able to run any ads in LSA. It was going to automatically pause your ads until you linked it up.
Correct. It would have pulled your ads down.
Yeah.
However, what we did start to see after the rollout was GBPs still running, LSAs still running. If they were unlinked, the LSA ran for another 24 to 48 hours unlinked from the GBP reviews. So it was showing at a lower rating and a lower review count. So it was only the LSA reviews that were showing.
Yeah. So inconsistent to what they were saying was supposed to happen, right? In theory, this was going to help with spammers that only had LSA profiles and didn't have the GBP to match, weren't going to be able to. And it's just been a little bit of a mess on what kind of was thought to was going to happen versus what happened.
Correct.
Yeah. So then, okay, let's go back into, some of the bugs that were happening there.
Yeah. So during the rollout week, I would say like a week after, the first bug we noticed was that reviews were gone. They were just missing. Like the review counts went down, the total review count went down. So as we read more about the issue, it was actually a mainstream Google GBP issue that brought down and affected all platforms. It wasn't just home services. It wasn't just our clients. They confirmed it was just like a review count inaccuracy, but those reviews were not lost. They were still in their back end, and they were able to restore and bring them all back.
So how big a problem was this, Natalie? Did we lose 1 or 2 reviews? Did we lose half of our reviews? Like, how big of a problem was it? Do we know?
It was pretty inconsistent again. I think some people lost like maybe 10 reviews. Maybe some people lost more than that. Enough for people to notice.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
And this was in GBP. This was GBP only specific.
Correct.
Issue. Nothing to do with LSA reviews.
And at this point, has Google reinstated this really across the board? Like they fixed this?
Yeah, I would say like within a few days since the issue got brought up, because it was affecting everyone in GBP world. they made sure to restore those
They
reviews
fixed
pretty
it. Good.
quickly.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
So that sounds like it probably was a separate GBP bug, nothing to do with this. We don't know
Correct.
if it was somehow involved. It was at the same time. So we were at the time speculating, is this, still have something to do with this? And we're seeing other stuff, but that one, minor, it was fixed,
It was
in
a
good spot
coincidence.
now.
Yeah. But the issue that we have seen, again, no confirmation from Google, but we can only assume it's all related, is that GBPs are getting suspended. And there are GBP listings that we're not touching, like literally no changes, no core updates, no new users, nothing. And they're just coming down. And the minute that they come down, we see the two instances where the LSA is still showing unlinked from the GBP. So you see low review count, low rating. Like I'm seeing 5.0, 4.9 going down to 3.9, 4.0, which is a significant difference. Which
So
affects
Natalie, that's super important. Let me walk back so I can understand that. So if you lose if your GBP gets suspended, then the review count from your LSA, all those reviews that were associated with the GBP disappear. So now the biggest signal to Google to rank your LSA is gone. So you lose a lot of calls from LSA as well. Is what
correct. Cuts your lead volume down significantly.
That's how it's always been too with GBP. If it gets disconnected from if your GBP goes down, those reviews disconnect. Now, it was supposed to, again, I know I said this before, maybe I'm repeating myself. The way it was understood is when that happens, you're not connected. Like the whole listing should go down. So, I don't know. It's just interesting how there's a lot of variables at play here and changing variables too. So
I did see, like with some recent suspensions last week, the minute the GBP went down, it did change the status in the LSA dashboard to verify. And then that's like another point to check. And then when you clicked and saw in live search that the LSA was still running, the rating was down, the review count was low, meaning it disconnected. And then 24 hours later, it was completely gone. So
that's an indicator that maybe that is where it's going, not fully rolled out yet. It's super gray right now. So
the goal is that it should take down the LSA altogether the minute it disconnects from GBP. That's the comms that Google sent out to all of the advertisers.
Got it. All right. I know we give this. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. I was going to say, do we think there's no way to know for sure all these GBPs coming down? We speculate that that does have something to do with this, connection between the two and LSA, right?
We definitely feel confident that it has to do with this rollout.
Yeah. So what are we seeing right now with all these GBPs getting suspended? Let's just talk about what's happened with that, because everything happening at once now. There's a backup in terms of getting them reinstated, right? This happened, and all of a sudden there's a ton of GBPs coming down. What are we dealing with now because of this?
Yep. So there is a backlog right now with Google support. There is a few steps that you need to do if your GBP does get taken down. And so for suspensions, you have to submit an appeal. And it's like multiple, sometimes it could be multiple appeals. So like with the first appeal, we suggest submitting your DBA or FBN or assumed business name document. And then we also say to submit a utility bill with the full business name, full business address, and then that would be like the first appeal submission. Right now, the timelines have been taking 14 to 20 days, sometimes longer. At least that's what we're seeing. But we expect it to get worse before it gets better.
So normally when you would go and try and reinstate your GBP, it might take, if they're doing good, a few days to respond, a week to respond. Now that's going into 2 weeks. And if you have to submit an additional appeal, then you're waiting again. So like now you're like, oh, wow, I'm waiting a month plus, that type of thing at this point, which is frustrating. It's frustrating that, these bugs happen. And then, you're sitting there, you're lost your GBP listing, you lost your reviews from LSA. So now your review count is down and your LSA reviews are potentially affected.
Businesses get hurt. Yeah.
What we've seen, so with the long timelines, what we're seeing is GBPs go down and then LSAs follow. So, I mean, they are losing two big lead sources within a week, and they're waiting like a month to get these back up.
Yeah. All right. I know we've given this advice before, but Google always has the potential to suspend your Google business profile. How do you prepare beforehand in case you're going to get suspended?
So I would just say gather a standard list of some documentation. Again, the DBA document is always what we use, or FBN, or assume name, however you use it in your state. Utility bill is what we use. It has to be a current utility bill within the last 30 days. It has to have the business name and the physical business address. Also location images. So exterior images of your location, just to show Google you are a legitimate business, and some interior images like office space, inventory, warehouse setup, that type of thing. That's usually what we collect for our clients.
So having that on the ready, as soon as it gets suspended, you're able to boom, press the button, submit, versus if you don't, you're scrambling. Now you're trying to talk to, your utility company, and they don't send you a bill until, another 3 months or 3 weeks from now. So now you're waiting for that. So it's like being prepared is going to make things move a lot faster.
And okay, so now you're prepared, you got suspended. Now what should they do?
They'd have to go through an appeal process. So they have to go through Google support to submit the first appeal.
And you just Google support. There's a link there, and you start the conversation.
Yes. And then they should respond with a case ID number. And that case ID number is kind of like the reference number that you'll continue on for the escalation path.
Okay. So let's just talk a little bit more about, and I feel like we're in the middle of all of this right now, and maybe the process hasn't been fully ironed out for that reason. Right now, if you're a small business and you are presented with this request to link your GBP to your LSA, do you go ahead and do it, or do you wait for things to settle down? Do you have a choice? What do you do?
So if you have a LSA that's already going through the onboarding and it needs to link to a GBP, should you, is the question? You have no choice. Yeah.
You have no choice. Gotcha.
You have no choice. You have to link it to a GBP in order to show for LSA. So any new onboarding accounts, like, we're making sure the GBP is already up and running. And if it's not, that LSA won't go live.
Got it. Okay. And then what about in the case where the existing, and is Google sending you an email saying, go ahead and link these, and then, or the link is in the GBP and you're trying to just go find it and link the two? How's that process? What does that look like to somebody who's
again, very inconsistent. So
really?
they initially had no communication once your listing got disconnected or your LSA came down, but we have started to see more communication come through from Google, and it'll notify you and it'll say, like, your business needs to be verified or your Google LSAs will come down. So again, like, we're always doing sweeps. We're always checking to make sure. And I think the biggest indicator is like loss of lead volume, right? Like, the minute you start to notice that like the leads are down, you can tell very quickly, like, usually it's because those two got disconnected or are both taken down.
Okay. So really there's not much a business owner can do right now, but be prepared with their GBP information in case of a suspension. It sounds like the only real action item that a business owner can take right now as we all prepare to weather this storm is kind of what I'm hearing. Hopefully
this all ends up, once it all shakes out, where we feel like Google intended, where, it's trying to, help with some of the spam and exploitation of local service ads, right? You need that GBP. It's harder to spam GBP. So hopefully that's where it ends up. We will see as this plays out. I think one other thing when you're talking about what you can do, if it does play out like this, again, GBP can do, there's random sweeps that they do. They're always trying to catch spam on their end, and there ultimately are legitimate listings that get taken down. It will happen to you at some point. If you're in business for long enough, your GBP will come down. You didn't necessarily do anything wrong. Now with that connection to LSA, not only do you lose your GBP listing, if this shakes out as intends, you lose your LSA listing. So you lose two sources of leads, right? Which can be really detrimental. So considering potentially having a multi-location strategy is actually kind of an insurance policy for if this happens to you right now. Hopefully in the future, if that happened, you can get it up within a short period of time, right? A couple days, hopefully, a week, probably more realistic. So it's not too devastating. But, when you run into things like this and there are backlogs Google has, and, ultimately things can happen, if you have a second location where you have reviews that at least, from an LSA and with an LSA listing tied to it, right? So you had two LSA listings. Now at least you have a backup plan and you didn't lose, double the leads, if that makes sense. So it's interesting. And yeah, there's lots of gray area with this right now. So we'll see where it all lands.
So I like to leave just with the optimism of that. If this does go where Google intended and we see a reduction in LSA spam for the long term, that would be a significant positive. So we'll leave on that optimistic note. Natalie, any final words?
As this stuff continues to unfold, we'll make sure to record a new episode and give the latest updates.
Perfect.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe a month from now or something like that, or a couple months from now. We'll see once all the smoke clears. I think, Tim, I think Google had good intentions with this for execution, and like the bumps, you kind of know that that's going to happen. And that's what kind of always happens with new things with Google. So yeah, hopefully next time we come on and talk about this 2 months from now or whenever that is, we'll say, we got through all the bumps. This is what happened. This was the positive. People benefited because the spammers and the scammers have mostly disappeared, and all is good. So
and everyone's leads tripled.
So in the meanwhile, and as always, in Google we trust. Until next time. Thank you for tuning into our podcast, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening to the Home Service Contractor Blueprint. Don't forget to leave a review and subscribe so you can stay up to date on home service trends.